I just want to see how happy you are in Ghana. Then he said, but I have a favor to ask you. I said, what is it, Mr. President? He said, I'm passing through Ghana tomorrow because I'm going to see his ex-wife who was in hospital, and I want you to come and pick me up from the airport. I said, Mr. President, you are the president. How can I come to the airport to pick you up? He said, I say, come. Okay, I packed up, I went to the airport. But when I there, I found all the Ghanaians were there waiting for him. Full protocol. I went to the chief of protocol. I said, listen, you know, I don't know how this man is going to come here. So if I come here, he's the one who told me to come. He said, yeah, we recognize you, Mr. Resrep, you know, join the queue and so on. So he came off the plane. He hugged me. And he said to the guys there, I have something very important to discuss with this man. Because they told him they were taking him to see President Rawlings. Something very important to discuss with this man, and therefore tell me what time you'll bring me back to the airport. Oh, they gave him, I think, 2 hours, 3 hours or so. Then they brought him back to the airport. When they brought him back, he said, now leave me with this gentleman here, because I have something very important to discuss with him. They all retired and left in his room. Then he closed the door and he laughed. He laughed, he said, you know, let us just chat. Fantastic guy. Let us just chat. And you know, there are numerous stories like that that I can repeat for you. But I am glad to be really able to come here in this initiative which we all commend for a great man, humble man, great African statesman, so that we keep his legacy alive. We create a foundation which will mirror his values and his attributes, various attributes. And certainly, me and my fellow retired UN, including this man sitting right in front of me here, will continue to honor him and to respect. I also want to, let me give you one more story, and then I will hold my peace, because the chairman is already looking at me with a bad eye. I am glad that President Bio is here, and I'm saying this story, I don't want to embarrass him. I was regional director for Africa, UNDP. I come to this lady here, who was my great boss and big sister. So he came to New York. Every time he came to New York, he would call me when I was in New York. And then one day he called me. He said, you know, there's a gentleman I want you to help. His name is Julius Mandabio. He said, we owe him a lot in Sierra Leone because he set the democratic dispensation. I said, yeah, my former president, what can I do for him? He said, make him a UNDP rep. So UNDP rep? He said, yeah. He says he has the military discipline, he has the intellect, and he ran Sierra Leone. Therefore, what problem would we have to run a small UNDP office? So make him a rep, and I will write to you. So I thought he would go back to Sierra Leone and write to me. He took one of the hotel papers, and he wrote me a letter. I still have that letter, and I will auction it one day. But I wanted to honor what he told me. I was in the UNDP, then they promoted me as Under-Secretary General. I went to ECA. Well, you know what? We're all happy that both him and I failed. If not, you would not have a president like that. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to say how happy I am, and to thank particularly Madam Kabba, who invited me. I came from Malabo yesterday, was tired, but to honor her and to honor members of the board of this foundation, and to all you Sierra Leoneans who always call us Gambe man. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnny. It is now my singular pleasure to invite Your Excellency, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Please, can I invite you to make the short walk to peace to this podium here?
Excellency Dr. Julius Marabiu, President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Your Excellency Mr. Vice President, Mr. Former Vice President, my dear colleague, Ambassador Abdullah Jane, Asatu Kabba, CEO and founder of the foundation, the Vice President, also to you, I'm pleased to be here today to join the many that have come together to memorialize and give honor to former President Alhaji Ahmad Tejan Kabba, one to whom honor is truly due. Thank you, Mrs. Kabba, for the invitation, and thanks to the organizing committee for the impressive arrangement for this occasion. President Kabba and I crossed paths several times at the United Nations, where we both served before we arrived at the presidency. But the more enduring memories come from the struggle that ensured, the sufferings that were endured, the hard decisions and the compromises that had to be made to end years of bloody and destructive conflict to secure the peace for our sub-region. I recall, as we worked for regional stability and cooperation, as presidents of our two historical and friendly nations, we strengthened the Mono River Union and undertook joint efforts to resolve the long-standing conflict and tension between Guinea and Sierra Leone on the Yenga border dispute. Perhaps Ambassador Tarame will remember how in those days we had to cross the river, sometimes in the canoe, to ensure that we were able to get across, not only across the river, but to get the ideas of peace into the minds of all of those who led the uprisings. As the Ahmad Tejan Kabba Foundation for Peace and Democracy is launched today, we commend its vision to champion a holistic approach to peace, democracy, and justice, advocating the resolution to ensure that peace will continue to prevail. These are the ideals and the goals envisioned by President Kabba. These are the activities he exemplified in his life's journey. Today, we have an increasingly complex world where the values of yesterday are challenged and changed, where technological communication threatens the efforts of peace by the spreading of false information. To the memory of our fallen leader, we must continue with the strength and the courage to promote peace and solidarity among all of our national and regional institutions. In closing, on this day of the African child, we remember the kind act of President Kabba, who brought to the attention of the world the situation of little Menunatu Mansari, whose right arm was amputated during the Sierra Leone conflict. We thank him for his intervention, for his rapid reaction, as Manunatu is now attending university at 17 years old in the United States of America. And we thank you, Madam Kabba, for being able to focus her during this celebration to his memory and what he has done for mankind. It is hoped that for each and every one of us here today who will have a part to play, no matter how small, no matter how large, that we will do so in the memory of President Alhaji Ahmad Tejan Kabba, who for his whole lifetime ensured that peace and democracy became the vanguard of all of humankind. Thank you.
So as Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf takes her short walk to peace, it is my pleasure to remind all of us that today is Father's Day. So for all the great fathers of this country and assembled here, I think it's proper and it's in place to give fathers a round of applause. And His Excellency, the President is a great father. He deserves a huge round of applause. We now have a very short message from, a recorded message from His Excellency, retired General Olusegun Obasanjo, former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Alhaji Ahmed Tejan Kabba was somebody I know fairly well. I must confess, I did not know too much of him when he was serving in the international arena. But when he came home and started serving at home on the political plane, we started interacting. And the first thing that anybody will see about him is that he was human and he was humane. When when you have people who are human and humane, their reaction to issues are normally very, very subdued. Subdued in the sense that they do not flap. They do not go for what most people will want to go for, the obvious. What are the obvious? You offend me, how do I get a revenge? Kabba was not such a man. He was a man of peace. He was a man who considers, or who considered others before he even considered himself. And in all things that I had to deal with him, both at the national, at the regional, and at the continental level, peace was very much upper in his mind. Peace and the consideration for other people. I remember we have to go out together in an helicopter to see the boys who were rebelling and who are also taking part in alluvial mining. And I was more angry than my brother Kabba when we saw these boys. And he said to me, we have to do something to win them out of this in a way that they will realize that peace is more important than rebellion. And that is the sort of man he is. A man of peace. A man who will sacrifice his own comfort to make others comfortable. A man to whom nothing of importance to him cannot be sacrificed for the interest of the country, and indeed the interest of our sub-region West Africa and our continent. Alhaji Ahmed Tejan Kabba laid the foundation of peace and democracy. And transition seemed to have gone very well. But then the next stage, which I would say is transition of transition, or if you like to put it another way, transitioning to transition, needs a little bit of effort. Effort to ensure that peace is not derailed. Effort to ensure that democracy is sustained. Efforts that make sure that dialogue is maintained. You see, wherever you have conflict and violence, it is because dialogue has not played its role the way it should have played it. In our own traditional society, in our culture, we never leave things out until it is thoroughly dialogued, debated and resolved under a baobab tree, under an iroko tree, under a shade somewhere. Our elders will get together. They will talk and talk until a matter is resolved. And when night fell, they will say, okay, let us break up. And night will provide wisdom. And what they used to do is, in twos and threes, they will go and consult and persuade. And when they gathered the following morning, you find that indeed night has provided wisdom. Why are we not doing that today? Why are we standing? It must be me. My position must be the only position. No, you need to dialogue enough. And dialoguing means assuming the position of give and take. You cannot win it all. The idea of even winners take all is not right. In our own traditional society, consensus. People build consensus. And that means there's no winner, there's no loser. When you are still not fully convinced, they come round and convince you. They come round and persuade you. They come round and make you see what is right. And that was the sort of thing that my brother practiced. So I expect this foundation to look into the life and time of Alhaji Ahmad Tejan Kabba and take those things which are actually essentially African way of resolving issues, dialoguing, discussing, debating, persuading, consensus building, and make it the objective of this foundation as the way of making peace and sustaining democracy and ensuring security, ensuring cooperation, ensuring development, and ensuring progress within the nation and within our sub-region of West Africa and Africa. He lived a life that is worthy of emulation. So what we should do is look at the life he lived and some of the characteristics of the life he lived I've mentioned: peace building, patience, even in the face of provocation, dialoguing, and listening to other people's point of view, and debating and seeking consensus with one aim in view: building peace, building solidarity, building unity, building development with equity, and ensuring progress. Progress for all. Progress that is sustained and sustainable.
That ends the reflections, the recollections about this great man we're talking about. To some extent, I really believe that we all now know who late President Ahmed Tejan Kabba is, the man himself. But let me just end with an anecdote on this section. One of the things I recall about the late president is his ability to make people come alive just by meeting him the first time. I recall a Sierra Leonean colleague, a very outstanding Sierra Leonean colleague, an academic who has been longing to see him, and the first time they met, and he disarmed him immediately. He said, "Oh, we've met before." And my colleague stood there baffled, and he said, yes, several times. That was the way the human being would always make other people happy. It is now my pleasure to move to the other section of the program by inviting Mr. Emmanuel Gaima to do a presentation on His Excellency Dr. Ahmed Tejan Kabba's legacy. Mr. Gaima, you're welcome to the podium, please. A slight modification is pre-recorded because it wasn't clear whether Mr. Gaima will be here, but I think he has his own plane, so he's with us here. But it's pre-recorded, so we can watch the clip itself.
The legacy of the late Alhaji Dr. Ahmad Tejan Kabba, late President of the Republic of Sierra Leone. Ahmad Tejan Kabba, who by the grace of Allah ruled Sierra Leone from 29 March 1996 to 17 September 2007, left Sierra Leone and the world at large an enduring legacy. The American country singer Randy Travis, in True Wooden Crosses, says, "It is not what you take when you leave the world behind you. It is what you leave behind you when you go." So this brief exposition is not about what Tejan Kabba took with him to his grave, but to memorialize what he left behind when he went back to his maker Allah. Kabba, the peacemaker, the peace builder. When late Ahmad Tejan Kabba became president of the Republic of Sierra Leone in March 1996, the country was engulfed in a debilitating rebel war, which created untold hardship for all Sierra Leoneans. Tejan Kabba, as he was popularly and fondly called by Sierra Leoneans, brought to the presidency two important advantages: his deep understanding of the country's political landscape and having served in very senior administrative positions in Sierra Leone in the 1960s, as well as his exemplary services in the United Nations global system as a seasoned diplomat and negotiator. Tejan Kabba was a peacemaker as well as a peace builder. Having secured a peace in 2002, which Sierra Leoneans desperately desired after 10 years' brutal civil war, he endeavored to sustain the peace through critical initiatives such as disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration program, which catered for the needs and interests of former irregular fighters, and the setting up of transitional justice mechanisms, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, as well as encouraging victims and perpetrators to peacefully coexist to save Sierra Leone and build a peace. If Sierra Leone is relatively peaceful today, by the special grace of Allah, we must be grateful to Tejan Kabba for the great pains he took to make our country stable. Tejan Kabba, the great unifier. Tejan Kabba inherited a deeply polarized Sierra Leone, occasioned by years of maladministration and a horrendous civil conflicts. However, he made tremendous efforts, often at great personal inconveniences, to unite the country and heal many wounds
Kabba was himself the symbol of this unity, for he positively associated with all the ethnic groups in the country. He strived to the president of all Sierra Leoneans. This was reflected in all major political, diplomatic, and administrative appointments he made. The distribution of national development initiatives, sometimes to the annoyance of some members of his own party, the Sierra Leone People's Party. Tejan Kabba, a great respecter of the national constitution. A reputable lawyer and international diplomat, Tejan Kabba was fully aware of the ramifications of executive interference with the workings of state institutions. Thus, he allowed all the important arms of governance to operate without hindrance. Unlike many other African leaders who quickly develop an insatiable greed for power and autocratic tendencies, Ahmad Tejan Kabba refused to be pressurized by political fortune seekers and sycophants to extend his rule. He gracefully handled